Welcome to Successful Noom Kitchen with Jim John Marks, where we prepare recipes which encourage us to enjoy our meals more and set us up for long-term success with our relationship to the food we eat based on the principles of the Noom program. Today we're making masala shrimp with saffron rice. Unlike our pilaf rice from a previous episode, you do not need to bloom your saffron in the water prior to cooking the rice for this method. You can simply put 1 cup of brown rice and 1/4 cup of wild rice if you like. You don't need to include that, along with your 2 cups of water into an ordinary rice cooker. And I prefer one with no features and only one button. All it does is know how to cook rice and nothing else. And you just add your couple of pinches of saffron to the water, and as the water comes up to temperature during the cooking process, it will bloom on its own before the water starts to boil. And that will give you that lovely yellow color, as well as the lovely floral fragrance that saffron provides so nicely to rice. 1 button to push, it turns red. When it turns back to orange, we know our rice is done. This is about 1 inch of simmering water into which I'm going to lower a steamer basket of U1625 head-on shrimp, and I will explain why I'm bothering with shell-on, head-on shrimp as we go. They do add a fair bit more work, but they're also well worth it in the end. These are going to steam under a nice strong simmer for 5 minutes, and that will be more than enough time to cook them through by the time they join our masala recipe. And this is the recipe that we follow. I'll post that in the description as well. We make that in huge batches and then portion it into these quart bags, which we keep in the freezer. I thawed this one out the day before we made the recipe. And that is 1 cup of whole milk that I'm adding. And this is again where your opportunity to make changes at the last minute comes in handy. If you've had a great day and gotten a lot of exercise, you can use a can of coconut milk, and then this masala will be absolutely phenomenal. And if you've had an ordinary day, you can use skim milk or no milk at all if you really need to. And that keeps your yellow and red calories to a minimum in this otherwise very lean recipe. So that's where you can control your budget the best. After 5 minutes, the shrimp are steamed through, and we're going to lift those out of the water, but we're not going to get rid of the water. The whole reason we're doing this is the way that water is going to be by the time all this is done. Be careful when you're doing this. Even with the plastic handle, this is obviously quite hot. You do want to let all that drip in there because you want to keep it. And now we're going to peel these. You're going to pop the heads straight off and put them into the water, and then we're going to peel the shells off as well. And all that just goes right back into this water, which I'm going to turn up to a nice strong, gently rolling boil here. And we're going to then, once we've got all those shells in, we're going to cook those for a good 10 or 15 minutes in that water. Just the shells. The reason for this is what makes a lot of South Asian cuisine, Thai cuisine, Indian cuisine that features anything seafood related, what gives those dishes their luscious unctuousness is actually boiled shrimp brains, which, while a little off-putting to some of us, are quite delicious. And so we're going to cook these shells and cook these heads and get all that flavor into the water, and then we'll keep that for other projects in the future. If we're going to make a seafood soup or any kind of a dish that wants extra cooking liquid and it's a seafood-based dish, you can just add some of that, and you'll amp up your flavor without adding any calories of any kind. Even if your fishmonger claims to have cleaned the shrimp, you do want to go through all of them very carefully after you've gotten them shelled. These looked like somebody had tried to clean them, and I still had to go through them one by one, and some of them required a great deal of additional effort to get them genuinely clean. Especially with bigger shrimp like this, if you skip this step, you or one of your other dinner guests may get a rather large mouthful of something you don't want to eat. It can be gritty and hard on the teeth as well as distasteful. So it's worth the time to go through and make sure they're all properly cleaned. And then once all that's done, the shrimp are basically ready to go. Once our masala sauce is ready and our rice is ready, those will just be folded in and they don't even need any more time to cook. This is some fresh cilantro. We grow it in the backyard in a pot. It had bolted. You can see it was starting to bud and flower here, so you want to pick out those buds and flowers. You don't want to necessarily be eating those. The flavor changes, and so it just doesn't taste like cilantro. Despite the fact that you often see cilantro prepared with all the stems removed, the stems taste exactly the same as the leaves, and there's no real reason to get rid of them. That big, thick stalk is too woody to eat, but all the little thin, tender stems, there's no reason to get rid of those. So we just grind all this up here real quick with a paring knife, and we're not going to cook this. We're just going to sprinkle this on at the end. Indian food, especially a tomato-based Indian dish, really wants that fresh green right at the end. As you can see, our rice has turned this beautiful yellow color. If the internet could transmit smells, you would smell a lovely floral fragrance coming off of that. Our masala sauce has had time for the milk to integrate into the sauce. It's reduced down just a little bit. We've really only let it simmer though. We're not trying to cook it or boil it. All that was done at batch time. So it's up to temperature. We can fold in our shrimp right here, which again are basically already cooked. So all we need to do is just get them integrated and ready to dish out. So those get dished directly onto the rice and finish with our chopped cilantro, and there you have it. All the hard work was batching off the masala sauce and dealing with the shrimp. And you could do this with shelled shrimp, and then it would be a 5 or 10 minute meal other than waiting for the rice to cook. Our shrimp heads have had plenty of time to cook now. You want to get those into the finest strainer that you have. And don't forget to turn off your burner because it's up very hot there. And if you forget, you can end up putting an empty pot back on top of it by mistake. I've made that mistake more than once and you regret it. This is an aluminum rolling pin that I use here. And you'd be amazed how much water wants to hold on to these shells even once you've poured it through. And so you really do want to kind of whack them and bounce them and spend a good couple of minutes here making sure every last drop has come out. Surface tension on shells and things like that is amazingly grippy. So be sure to be thorough with this, and then you can let this water cool and save it for another project on another day. And there you have 2 examples of batch cooking, our masala sauce and our shrimp brain broth, one of which gives us this lovely dish today. Thank you for watching this episode of Successful Noom Kitchen with Jim John Marks. If you have questions about this episode, please comment and we will do our best to address your concerns. If you enjoyed this video, please consider clicking the thumbs up, and if you are interested in all our videos, please subscribe. All music in these episodes are my own compositions, available from my Bandcamp location, the URL for which is on the screen and in the channel info. Please note I am not associated with Noom Incorporated in any way, and all content is entirely my responsibility.